From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
That right there, just a small sample of the damage in Livingston from yesterday's big windstorm. Coming up, we'll take a video tour around the Treasure State to show you where else the wind was a problem.
A coyote in Yellowstone National Park was killed by park rangers.
And actually grabbed like a bag of food out of a visitor's hand.
I'm John Sheeran. Coming up, find out why park visitors may be to blame.
Well, it does seem like an understatement to say the wind was ferocious yesterday. Ferocious, for sure. In Bozeman, street light at the intersection of South 19th and Graff went out just after 3 because of several down power lines. Police blocked off a stretch of road to watch for any other poles that could come down. At least one neighborhood between Graff and Goldenstein without power for a period of time as well. Matt, we talked about it for several days, this wind blowing our direction, and boy, I can't believe how much of the state was touched by that extreme wind.
It was a very widespread event. What was really impressive, and I think this puts it into perspective, you look at hurricane force winds and the damage that it can incur. It's over a period of time, and that's what we're dealing with. Hurricane force winds and long periods of time. That's not usually the case here in southwest Montana. Property damage is from Linda. You can see just snapping those trees, putting that through the roof of her home. And that's just a fraction of what we've been dealing with. Also a lot of fascias coming off of area homes as well. So very strong winds. Wind speeds in that 60 to 70 mile an hour range across most of the area. Mount Sentinel in Missoula, 125 mile an hour recorded wind gusts. Winds are a little lighter today. We still have some gusty winds, more of a westerly to northwesterly wind for the early part of the day. Our temperatures right now into the 20s. Sunny, cooler, and less wind. That's the case for today. It looks like our daytime highs will be into the low 30s, despite the fact that we have plenty of sunshine. We'll talk more about what you can expect from the Billion Auto Group Weather Patio coming up in just a little bit.
All right, thank you, Matt. 6:32. Let's take a quick tour around one of the harder hits of Montana yesterday. Windstorm in Livingston. Trees, power lines down, crushed a car. Just some of the damage. Storms brought to the Bozeman's neighborhood to the east. Usually windy community absorbed a big blow from systems that blow through, leaving behind widespread damage. That damage still being tallied, but as MTN's Cody Boyer, who visited Livingston, saw last night, he definitely saw a lot of that damage. Also around 3 o'clock yesterday, wind caused light poles at the 600 and 700 blocks of Granite Street in Butte to topple over. Look at that. Police blocked off the roads, redirected cars to avoid the area. Well, wind again, a big factor as well. Up north in Havre, officials responding to reports. Watch this, of the roof, MSU Northern's library. Yeah, the wind was strong, to say the least. How about this? Lead meteorologist of the National Weather Service in Great Falls, that's Christian Castle, took the video, captured several 5,000-gallon fuel tanks. They were empty, blowing down Interstate 15. One of them eventually rolls into a traffic sign, and that just flat out takes that out, just like that. Now in East Helena, a family no longer has a roof on their home. Renter taking a shower at the time initially thought the family dog knocked over the TV or other furniture. Soon discovered terrified dog and debris from the roof scattered across Lane Avenue. In Helena, a 100-year-old pine tree used for the life was uprooted from the wind when it came down and did damage to some lights in front of that building. And in the Garden City of Missoula, a fallen tree on Higgins Avenue brought firefighters and police to the area yesterday afternoon. You can see it there entangled in power lines. University district officials responding. More downed trees and fallen power lines there. Yeah, the wind was a factor across the Treasure State yesterday. 6:33 now, winds of change blowing into the state capitol yesterday as well. On a party line vote with Republicans in favor, Montana House on Wednesday endorsed a bill that will allow people to carry firearms on college campuses in the state. It also removes other prohibitions on carrying concealed weapons in certain places. The House voted 67-33 to endorse House Bill 102, set up a final binding vote later today. State Board of Regents currently prohibits firearms on state college campuses. This bill would block that prohibition. Sponsor of the bill, Senate Republican Seth Burgley of Joliet, says it still allows private property owners and businesses to ban firearms on their property or premises. But he said the bill's main purpose is to enhance safety by expanding the ability of law-abiding citizens to carry weapons to protect themselves. Democratic Representative Jim Keene of Butte predicted it would lead to more gunshot injuries and deaths and urged members to oppose that bill.
So when those issues come up, and those things happen, who holds us accountable for those things? No one. No one holds us accountable, because the bill is a dangerous precedent, and we'll probably see more of them this session.
The reality of a good guy with a gun stopping an attack is a thing. I would challenge any member of this body to find me a mass shooting where the shooter was engaged by an individual with a firearm and then continued on to kill multiple people. It doesn't exist.
Staying in Helena, minority Democrats at the Montana legislature unveiled some of their top priority bills for the session, and those priorities focus on health care policy. State Representative Mary Cafaro of Helena says the bills fulfill Democratic priorities of good health care coverage, job creation, and lower health care costs. Her bill would fine-tune an existing job training program aimed at easing a shortage in healthcare workers during the pandemic. State Senator Shane Morigeau of Missoula has a bill requiring medical providers to give patients written cost breakdowns for non-emergency procedures. And State Representative Jessica Karjala of Billings has a bill that would limit insulin costs for diabetes patients to $35 a month. When asked if Democratic-sponsored bills would gain much traction when Republicans hold a big majority of the legislature, Morigeau said he certainly hopes so.
You know, we represent a major portion of the state, and I would hope that our colleagues across the aisle would recognize that and recognize the fact that their voices are just as important as everyone else's. So, you know, all of these bills, they cost little or nothing to the taxpayer. They help our economy, and they lower costs for Montanans.
Now, Republican Governor Greg Gianforte also has talked about supporting bills that would stop surprise medical billings. The Democratic-sponsored bills have yet to be introduced to the 2021 legislative session. Well, Governor Greg Gianforte announced that as of Friday, he will lift statewide restrictions on capacity and operating hours for businesses like bars and restaurants. However, Governor Gianforte's actions do not change the situation in counties where health boards have adopted their own restrictions on hours of capacity. More on Gallatin County in a minute. He said after consulting with health leaders and businesses, he felt the capacity and hour regulations weren't necessary.
We can reduce the burden on our small business owners while simultaneously protecting the health of Montana workers and customers. These two are not mutually exclusive.
The governor also repealed the state-specific limit on sizes of gatherings. The new directive says public events should be managed in a way that meets Centers for Disease Control guidelines. But Gallatin City County Health Officer Matt Kelly, in a response to the governor's newest directive, said in part, in Montana, local board of health have a duty under state law to take action to protect the public health in their community. He went on to say, the bottom line is that board's action remain in effect in Gallatin County. That means closing at 10 p.m., capacity limits for certain businesses, and limits on group size of 25 or less do not change with the governor's announcement. There you can see the statement that we just read to you as well. So it will not change because of the health department's directives. 6:38 now. In other news this morning, last month, rangers in Yellowstone National Park killed a coyote that was stealing food from park visitors and employees. MTN's John Shearer explains why the animal problem in the park are more often people problems.
So here's the scenario. You're walking along a path here in Mammoth in Yellowstone, and a wild animal comes running up. It's a coyote, you know, about the size of a medium-sized dog, and it begins to badger you. So you do what most people do. You drop the chips and get out of there. So what did rangers do?
We tried to do some aversive conditioning.
That means scare it away using...
like a paintball gun.
So how did that work out?
That did not work out well.
The coyote came right back to its old tricks. So rangers had to kill it. The animal was getting aggressive and could have easily attacked and hurt someone. But you can't blame the coyote.
So coyotes are incredibly smart animals.
And people feed them.
It doesn't take very many times for an animal to get fed before it's probably its death sentence.
This has been a problem in Yellowstone for more than 100 years. And when an animal gets fed,
they don't unlearn that behavior.
And just moving the animal really doesn't help.
You know, if you were able to relocate them, they're going to have that behavior wherever they go to.
Rangers say the only way to put a stop to things like this is to stop people from teaching coyotes they can get food from humans. In Mammoth, at Yellowstone National Park, John Shearer, MTN News.
Now, Townsend says when people see animals in developed parts of the park, they need to let rangers know right away so the animals can be chased away for their own safety. Again, don't feed the animals. 6:40. We're going to take a break. One of the big vaccine makers says it needs more kids to take part in trials. Coming up, find out why doctors say it's important for kids to get the shot too. But first, here's Gail King with a look at what's coming up at 7 on CBS This Morning.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, the latest on the historic second impeachment of President Trump. The next steps in when a Senate trial may begin. Also, the Capitol is on high alert. You've seen the pictures as new threats emerge. We'll talk with one congresswoman who's joining other lawmakers. They're demanding an investigation into what they call suspicious activity one day before last week's attack. Plus, the push to vaccinate more Americans appears to be gaining speed. How one big employer is offering workers extra pay to get vaccinated. And if other businesses will follow suit. We'll talk about that. And we're going to team up with Elmo. Yeah, we like him to help answer kids' questions about staying home and keeping safe during this pandemic. We'll see you at 7 o'clock. Elmo has a very distinct voice. We'll see you at 7.